You don't know that. You might succeed if you listen to me.
Tempting, but they are far too wise to listen to you. Dragons have come a long way since the fairy tales of old.
Ah, but there are dragons who might agree with my ideas.
Not even they have the power to give you what you want.
Hey, is everything okay in there?
Little awesome fan. The adults are talking right now. I think it best you toddle off right now before things get messy.
You didn't have to talk to him like that.
He had to leave. He can't know of this forbidden knowledge.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but even I don't know of the forbidden knowledge.
What are you saying?
Inheritance was published in 2011. I remember when it came out since, again, libraries would advertise it everywhere. This book is the biggest of the series. In fact, Brissinger and Inheritance were meant to be one giant book, but because of how massive it was, it needed to be split into two. Because of this, the story takes place shortly after the events of Brissinger. Like Brissinger and Eldest, the book shifts to multiple perspectives, specifically Eragon, Rorin, and Nasuada. However, there are a couple chapters from Saphira's perspective. The story begins with Eragon leading the charge in the battle at Bellatona. The battle appears to be successful at first, until the Doth'dart comes into play. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. What is a Doth'dart? It is an elven weapon made during the time when the elves and the dragons fought each other. It means death spear in the ancient language. It's quite literally built to kill dragons. Anyways, it seems one of the noble houses in Bellatona had the Doth'dart known as Nirnan the Orchid. One of the soldiers tries to kill Saphira with the Doth'dart, but fails. Thankfully, it didn't hit anything major. The battle is a success, and now the Varden has a new weapon that can come in handy. Arya is holding on to Nirnan for safekeeping. With Bellatona captured, the Werecats decide to help the Varden. One of their conditions is that there must be a cushion reserved for one of their kind to stay with the new ruler of Alagasia. Now, just because they've taken yet another city of the Empire doesn't mean they're quite done yet. Nasuada sends Rorin with an army to go take the city Arafs. Rorin does manage to take the city using the canal system that the city is built off of. However, during a fierce battle with a spellcaster, his good friend Karn gives his life to beat the enemy spellcaster. I should mention during this time that back with Eragon and crew, they're making their way to Dras Leona. Eragon tries his best to practice sparring with the elves in his party, but it's not going very well. Also, Glader has been unwilling to speak with any of them for a long time now. It's only when Eragon starts sparring with Arya that Glader finally speaks with them. He is still very upset because of the death of Ormus, but he is willing to continue training Eragon and Saphira by sharing his wisdom. Rorin later rejoins the Varden as they attack Dras Leona. They're one obstacle in the way before the gates of Urubain. Dras Leona is under the protection of Murtagh and Thorn, though, which is a problem. There doesn't appear to be any way into the city until Jode discovers the possibility of a way in through the sewer system. The plan is to sneak into the city and open the gates. Eragon, Arya, Worden, one of Bloodgarm's spellcasters, and Angela, along with Sullumboom, go into the sewer system to check it out. However, it seems the enemy already suspected they would try this. Worden is killed by accidentally triggering one of the traps. The priests of Helgrind are also down here and separate the party from Angela. They also capture Eragon and Arya. Now, it's here that we learn that the priests of Helgrind actually worship the Razak, and they're not too pleased that Eragon killed their gods. The priests of Helgrind actually have Razak eggs and intend to feed Eragon and Arya to the hatchlings. But Angela and Sullumboom pop in to save the day. They destroy the Razak hatchlings, and Angela kills the high priest of Helgrind. The party manages to open the gate, and the army comes rushing in. With Glader's help, Eragon and Saphira drive away Murtagh and Thorn. Everyone is celebrating, but the celebration does not last long. Because Elva now has the freedom to do whatever she wants, she's not protecting Nasuada anymore and even refused to help Eragon when he wanted her to help infiltrate Dras Leona. Well, it seems Galbatorix knew about this, and Murtagh and Thorn come to the camp and kidnap Nasuada. With Nasuada gone, Eragon is now in charge of the Varden, and they need to continue their march to Urubain. Well, this is a problem. Now, before I get to what Eragon and friends plan to do, let's take a brief look at Nasuada's perspective. She is imprisoned in Galbatorix's castle in a place called the Hall of the Soothsayer, where Galbatorix says she cannot lie. Nasuada is brutally tortured by Galbatorix since he wants her to work for him. Although it is later revealed by Murtagh, who comes alone to see Nasuada from time to time, that the original plan was to assassinate her. It's implied in the first book that Murtagh and Nasuada actually had feelings for each other during that time. Murtagh still has those feelings and convinced Galbatorix not to kill Nasuada, but instead make her work for him. Murtagh can't heal Nasuada's wounds since Galbatorix would grow suspicious, but he does do his best to ease her pain. Nasuda has not been broken. She even tried to escape at one point, but did not succeed. Since Galbatorix can't seem to break Nasuda through the usual methods, he tries to mess with her brain by showing her visions of things that will convince her to join him. However, Murtagh prepared Nasuda for this. She is still not broken, but she can't keep this up for too long. It eventually gets to a point where Murtagh promises to help Nasuda escape. Anyways, back with Eragon and friends, Eragon pressures Sullumboom to tell him about the Rock of Cuthien since all hope appears to be lost. Sullumboom doesn't know anything until he briefly gets possessed and directs Eragon to a page in the history book he has from Jode. Apparently, the Rock of Cuthien is on Rowengard, the old island home of the Riders. It also appears that the name of the Rock of Cuthien has a spell on it, which causes those who hear the name to forget it quickly. However, this spell does not apply to Eragon and Saphira, likely because they are the first free rider and dragon in a long time. Sullumboom and the other werecats were tasked to share this information with the first free rider centuries ago. But who gave them that task? Eragon shares this information with Arya and Glader. The new plan is for Eragon to travel to Rowengard with Saphira and Glader, while Arya stays behind to help the elves maintain the illusion that Eragon and Saphira are still with the Varden. When they reach Rowengard and protect themselves from the poisonous air that covers the island due to the last battle held there, they find the Rock of Cuthien. If you recall, part of Sullumboom's advice was for them to speak their name and open the way to the Vault of Souls. Now this name isn't just any name. It has to be their true name. I've mentioned how true names work briefly in Eldest and in Brissinger, but as a refresher, basically a person's true name allows someone to control them. It takes some time, but Eragon and Saphira learn their true names and speak them to the rock. The Vault of Souls opens, revealing a horde of hundreds of Eldunari and dragon eggs. Among the Eldunari is Umaroth, the dragon of the Rider of Rael, the leader of the Riders before Galbatorix killed him. They were hidden long before Galbatorix came to power and were so well hidden that not even Galbatorix could find them. Umaroth and many of the Eldunari join Eragon as he flies back to Urubane to fight Galbatorix. When Eragon returns with the Eldunari, they plan the attack. Eragon manages to convince Elva to help them out this time. The plan is for Eragon, Saphira, Arya, Elva, and Blodgarm with his spellcasters to infiltrate Galbatorix's castle and face him head-on, while the main armies of elves, dwarves, urgles, werecats, and men take down Lord Barst. Once inside the castle, things seem to be going well, and Elva guides them through carefully, but Blodgarm and his spellcasters are separated from the group. Elva couldn't warn them about that trap since they didn't get hurt. Well, Galbatorix is there to greet them all, mutes Elva, and tells them all that he learned the name of the ancient language. The name of the ancient language allows the spellcaster to remove any and all magic tied to words in the ancient language. Since Galbatorix knows this word, he can control all magic and how it is used. Because he delights in pain, Galbatorix forces Eragon and Murtagh to fight each other using only their swords. Eragon manages to win, but Murtagh learns in that moment that his true name has changed due to his feelings for Nasuda. Eragon asks Murtagh to join them. Murtagh uses the name of the ancient language against Galbatorix and strips him of most of his wards. Galbatorix is not pleased with that and incapacitates Murtagh. Arya, Saphira, and Thorn fight Shrukin, while Eragon and the Eldunari are left to deal with Galbatorix and his army of Eldunari. Now, because Eragon can't speak any words in the ancient language to use magic, he ends up casting a spell on Galbatorix without speaking. This is possible to do, but it's very dangerous since your thoughts can stray and mess up the spell. What was the spell cast on Galbatorix? It was a spell to make him experience all the pain he's caused people over his entire life. Eragon wanted him to understand all the harm he's doing. Arya also kills Shrukin with the Dothdart. Galbatorix can't bear centuries of pain anymore, and destroys himself with magic. He quite literally commands himself to not exist, which causes the following explosion. Eragon manages to protect everyone with his magic, but a lot of damage was done. The blast lingered for a while, similar to that of a nuclear explosion. Now, during all this, Roran had managed to kill Lord Barst and the Eldunari he had with him. Now that Galbatorix is dead, the castle begins to crumble. Murtagh frees Nasuda, and everyone gets out of there. However, Arya stays behind to look for the dragon egg in Galbatorix's treasury. She's okay, don't worry. She also ended up finding Blodgarm and his spellcasters. Because of all they went through, Murtagh and Thorn decide to leave Alagasia, but before they leave, Murtagh teaches Eragon the name of the ancient language. The Eldunari give them wisdom, and Murtagh and Thorn leave. Nasuda becomes High Queen of Alagasia. King Orin pledges allegiance to her on the condition that he receive more land. Arya returns to Elismira since her mother was killed in the battle, and now the elves have to elect a new leader. She takes the dragon egg with her. While she's away, the dragon egg hatches for her. She names the dragon Fiernan. The elves also choose Arya to be their new queen. Now, all of this takes place over the span of many months. During all this, Eragon and Saphira are looking for the perfect place to put all the Eldunari and dragon eggs, but they can't find any on Alagasia. So they decide to leave Alagasia. Before he leaves, he spends some time with Arya and Fiernan. Saphira and Fiernan have taken quite a liking to each other and are sad to be parted. In this time, Arya tells Eragon her true name and he tells her his. Eragon also reworks the pact between the riders and dragons to include Urgles and dwarves, which allows them to become riders. Eragon leaves behind 2 eggs for each race. The future riders are to travel to Eragon for training, while more eggs will be sent back to Alagasia. To finish up and confirm the prophecy of Angela, Eragon and Saphira sadly leave Alagasia, supposedly to never return. That's where the story ends. Real quick, I want to let you guys know that I'm aware of the book Murtagh that came out last year as of recording this. However, since I planned these well in advance, I had no plans to include it in this series September. Maybe someday in the future I will read it, but not right now. Well, let's analyze. Inheritance covers the horrors of war much more clearly, not just on the side of the Varden, but both sides. Galbatorix even mentions that his people fear the Varden, which is proven during the many battles in the various cities. War is not pretty and can lead to all kinds of tragedy. There's even fear after Galbatorix is dead that the Urgles will go back to their warlike ways. However, there is hope. Hopefully, through Eragon's conditions and the ability for the Urgles to become riders, the people of Alagasia need not fear the Urgles anymore. While you could also consider this a major theme in Brissinger, it's much clearer here. The change in Murtagh's true name. He learned that who you are now is not who you will become in the future. This is how true names can change, sometimes for the better, and sometimes for the worse. Now, I didn't mention this in the summary, but there's a part near the end where Eragon takes Rorin, Katrina, and their baby daughter Ismira to Elismira to celebrate among the elves. And if you recall, Sloane is still there. Because of Eragon's spell, Sloane could not interact with Katrina, but he could hear her. Eragon decided in that moment that he would restore Sloane's eyes so he could at least see his granddaughter. He was still not allowed to speak with Katrina, but he could look at her. It shows how Eragon is not like Galbatorix. He is merciful. Throughout the ending portions of Inheritance, Eragon is doing his best not to be like Galbatorix. He even refuses to be king of Alagasia. He fears over time that he will become the very thing he hates. It's a reasonable fear, and likely part of the reason he left. I'd like to talk about Galbatorix for a minute. While we don't really know him very well in the first 3 books, we get a better insight into his character in Inheritance. He wants to police magic and be in charge of who uses it, which is why he sought out the name of the ancient language. Now, the way he's going about it is wrong, and is likely a method he wanted to protect himself. And we see that he truly believed what he was doing was the right thing to do. He quite literally murdered all of the riders because they didn't give him a new dragon after his first one died. He drove Shrukin to madness and forced him to be his dragon. It's really sad. I can imagine that he felt Shrukin's suffering as part of Eragon's spell. Galbatorix lacked empathy. It wasn't until he felt all the pain that he had caused over the years that he realized what he was doing wasn't right, which inevitably led him to kill himself. Overall, I did enjoy reading this again, but it's quite slow. It almost reminds me of how Return of the King ended, where you think it'll stop with a big celebration and happily ever after, but it continues on for a bit to help the reader understand what happened to everyone and how it had to be done. That can be annoying sometimes, but in this case it did work. Plus, while Eragon and Saphira are saying goodbye to all the friends they've met along the way, in a way, it's written almost like we are saying goodbye to the adventure and the friends we've met along the journey. It reminds me of the ending of Earthbound that way. It's beautiful. I would recommend this book for ages 16 and up. It is dense, but slightly more fast-paced than the other books. Plus, like the other books, there are lots of battles going on, so it's quite violent. I hope each one of you get a chance to read this epic conclusion to the Inherited cycle. I'll see you soon for the series analysis. So you see, the name of the ancient language isn't even written down. Besides, you and I both know the power to summon the dragons is not in these words.
But I can help you find them.
You don't know where they are.
We can look for them together.
Get out of my head! Happy reading, everyone!